we want to welcome John Mazaville, who joined us last time, but he is officially a new trustee, so welcome and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
And then can I have a roll call, Laura?
Sure. Nelson.
Here.
Shuda.
Here.
Gaplin.
Here.
Beshin.
Here.
Data.
Here.
Bonsonfield.
Here.
And Bergstrom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, I need a motion to adopt or amend the agenda. So moved by Gaplin. Motion to adopt the agenda.
We're slacking over here.
Laura's just going to second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I'll have to play the delay game. Okay. Yes, that'll be. Next is community input. Anybody want to share anything during the community input part? Okay. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from June and July meetings both? We didn't have a quorum last time, so we weren't able to do the June meeting.
So moved by Jada.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Second. McCarthy.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Okay, thank you. Review and payment of bills and review and accept financial reports. Can I have a motion to do those together, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Carrie. Okay, Jennifer, what do we need to know?
So we have pretty typical expenses. There's a couple of bills that you're seeing, like a couple different bills, and those are just their different billing periods that we just received the invoice for now. And then I just want to point out for the building project, there is a large bill because of the progress through the design development and schematic design phase. So there is a larger installment than we've had so far. The bulk of that work will be done before we go out to bid. So you'll see a couple more large bills coming up in the coming months. You'll also see a column on the right noting that some of the bills will be paid from impact fees versus the borrowing. And we'll talk about, that's basically an accounting check and balance to kind of follow best practice for the village borrowing. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later for bills from January 2022 to now. Are there any questions on any of the bills you see on the expense report?
Carlene, any questions? That is a no. Okay. Anything else?
I don't have anything really to highlight on the financial report, but happy to answer any questions on that as well.
Any board members have questions? Okay. All in favor of approval and paying bills, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Okay. Next is discussion and possible action items. The first is the Ehlers investment proposal.
So we have Tammy from Ehlers here today. She's our senior investment advisor. And so the village, Lisa was talking with Ehlers a little bit about the village borrowing for the library project. And when we first did the borrowing, the village first planned the borrowing, we were anticipating needing to use the funds in late 2021 or early 2022. And so the 2021 borrowing was planned based on that timeline. Obviously, our project took a little different path than we were expecting, and so the funds were not needed as soon as we thought. So there is an opportunity potentially to invest the 2022 borrowing until those funds are needed to generate some interest for the village that would be available for the project. We just want to make sure we're being good stewards of those funds, and then also would help Lisa, who's the village finance director, who's joining us tonight, with just some bookkeeping, I guess, making sure that everything is being spent down appropriately for accounting purposes. So she asked Ehlers to put together a proposal for investment services. So Tammy's going to walk us through that tonight. And then if we choose to pursue that opportunity to generate some interest, there's the village investment policy, which is the next agenda item that we would have to adopt to be able to participate in that proposal. So I'm going to let Tammy, would you want to just walk us through the proposal? I think people have just a few questions about that.
No, and thank you all for letting me be here tonight. As Jennifer mentioned, Lisa and I had met and discussed not only the former borrowing, but your current borrowing and how you might be able to put some of those funds to work, especially until you need them for the project. So while you don't have final plans for your project quite yet or bids, a lot of what is in here will apply, and we can always evolve or change the actual recommendations. So really, just to give you a little bit of background, I am an investment advisor. So your municipal advisor was here and issued debt on your behalf. We help with that process as well as the management of debt proceeds. So whether it be debt proceeds or even your general funds or library reserves, we can help guide you through how to invest those dollars for the best benefit to the library. The first page you see there is actually just a summary of Ellers. Ellers is a fully integrated financial services firm that we only work with municipalities. So library districts, school districts, cities, towns, villages, counties. We really focus on the comprehensive financial picture and understanding all aspects of what you might need. So all recommendations that we make are based upon what we see in your current portfolio or even your current plans, financials, and what your goals are. So really when you think about the why behind why you would work with somebody like us, there are other providers. The largest difference is you are familiar with Ellers, you've worked with Ellers for many years, and we provide a lot of we understand the background of not only the village, but the library. So one of the largest benefits is not only that we're public sector, but we've worked with you guys for a very long time. We are a fee-only advisor, so we build our pricing structure is based upon how many assets under management you hold. As you spend those proceeds down, that fee actually does get incrementally smaller, but the percentage is based upon a tiered fee structure. And we are very transparent with fees. So as I was telling Lisa, this is very important. I think especially when you're managing public money, it is super important that you can show what you've earned on it, what you've spent on it to burn those dollars, and that it is most favorable for you. We provide a lot of services as well. If you go to the third page now, this is just a summary. It's kind of a visual of what we really provide. So we don't sell any one particular type of product. We focus on providing you products and services that are compliant with state statute, as well as that investment policy that Jennifer mentioned. But we also make sure that all of your investments are compliant, and we check them every day. So every day we run it through our portfolio accounting system to ensure that if there were any variances or if something were to get out of line, we know right away. Most commonly what we see will be if a rating changes on an underlying investment. So if you were to invest in, say, a Wisconsin municipal bond from another municipality, if the rating were to change, we'll get notified. That's not always to say that it's a red flag in its entirety, but it's really just important that we're monitoring any type of financial condition changes. If there's news up on any issue, or if you were invested in, say, another state's municipal debt as well, there are some really good quality options out there. You do have the option for corporate debt as well under state statute, but we typically will only look at that if it's a very low risk and fits within certain parameters. But just to give you an idea, you have a full suite of services available as well as products within our platform. We do, of course, make sure that from an accounting perspective, we get you guys everything you need that is efficient and makes your life hopefully easier, not much harder. The key here is, of course, we want to make sure that you have the funds necessary to complete your project in a compliant manner and earn a little bit of income on the back end. We act as a fiduciary, and what that means is we work for you. So we kind of joke that we're just an extension of your team. We work with all aspects of your financing to ensure that we fully understand how we can best help you and best serve you. We are always seeking best pricing or competitive pricing on whether it be even your debt issuance. We get competitive bids on debt issue. Even when we go purchase investments, even if it's CDs, we will call a variety of local banks as well as we put them against a national market. So the platforms that we leverage will always provide you best pricing, so you can feel confident that you don't have to call around and check pricing. We actually do that for you. We are very specific on how we develop this relationship. So it's not just a quick, let's get this started. We really focus on understanding the project. Before we would implement any formal investment strategy, we actually want to make sure we understand your bidding and what your status is, and of course, if you have a timeline. So all of the investments would theoretically be set to mature when you need the funds. If you go to page 5, this actually is just details. It's a sort of a visual of our process, and we've already begun begun some of this. So a lot of the work we do on the front end is understanding what your needs might be, how we might help, and of course that investment policy it will build a framework and set some parameters around the investment types and options available to you. The implementation phase would be after today. So if you were to approve us today, we would begin implementing. We'd get accounts open, get everything established so that you're ready to go, get funds in place, and then once we have some of those project timelines finalized, we would get them invested. And the compliance component never ends. It's an ongoing. In fact, this really should be a circle because compliance is every day. It's never ending. If we take a look at the next page here, one of the things that we focus heavily on is our reporting module. And the reports are customized specific to public entities like yourselves. They are what is called GAAP and GASB compliant. So anything that, from an accounting standpoint, that is needed on a monthly basis or annual basis, we have right in our systems and it's readily available. We can customize them, so if there's some information that you really want to see, or if you have, specific details every month that you wish to have available, we can customize a one-page report for your board. So that way, every month you know what you're seeing, you see it consistently, and it's readily available. We also include arbitrage-specific reporting. So one of the most important factors of this is keeping you compliant not only with the investments, but also your debt management side. So we will work within our team to ensure that the drawdown or the spending of your debt fits within the required parameters, and it's okay if it doesn't. We will help calculate any sort of, they call it a rebate requirement if you don't meet the requirements of arbitrage spend down, which is just one of the exemptions. We will actually help calculate a rebate for you. So the best part about this is we include that on the 2022 debt service, and I did tell Lisa, we're happy to also take a look at some of the 2021, and I have a team of arbitrage specialists already looking at that. So we'll discuss that further, but as it applies to today, again, it's not a bad thing. It's just once you know if you haven't met an exception, let's figure out how to move forward. So that is included. I am proposing to you guys that we implement this investment strategy, and one of the things that you'll see on the next page here, in fact I'll just go to page 8 here. This is an income projection, and so that it is a very, very basic illustration. I literally just spread it out evenly over like a 12-month period or 24-month period of time. And again, this is likely to change, but I wanted to make sure that you could see there is a way to have that cash flow so that it's pretty consistent. Typically with a construction project, we see that 18 to 24 month spend down. Sometimes you'll have months right in the beginning where it's a little bit higher of expenditures, and sometimes those actually get pushed out and it might be towards the end. But this is just an idea for you so you can see there is some income opportunity to be had. And from a fee standpoint, our fee is actually, it's 17 to 20 basis points based upon the amount that we're estimating of investing. And it's really, if you think about from a fee standpoint, it's about $10,000 over 2 years. So we're a pretty inexpensive way to add some extra staff and take some work off of your team so that we'll manage those investments so you don't have to worry about the compliance aspect and the rate aspect. And of course, the reporting capabilities come with it. And it does include there's no transaction fees, there is no travel, you don't pay me to come to these meetings. If you want me to come every month, that might crumble, but in reality, I will come join you anytime that you need. And I really am an expert resource for you, so we provide those reporting capabilities, and not just me, it's a whole team of individuals. There's a whole team of trade analysts and financial analysts that will always be available if you have questions or want some deep dive into treasury markets. We have a guy who would talk for hours about it. So don't be afraid to ask. And again, no other fees that we would expect you to see. If for some reason you wanted services that were outside of the investment advisory agreement, some examples might be, we've had individuals ask us about banking services RFPs, or sometimes we'll review your policies, and we always include the investment policy as part of our purview, but if you wanted us to actually do a full deep dive into your other financial policies, that is something that I am willing to do as well. My background is compliance and legal, so I focus heavily on policy drafting and compliance. So that's just an idea or example of where, if you wanted to, we can always talk about that. But we always establish a flat fee for something like that.
I just interrupt to clarify, we follow all the village investment policies and protocols, so that would be not a service that we would be opting to select, but would be available to the village if they needed it. We just follow them.
And it's really just so you have an idea. It's kind of one-off stuff that we would have any other fees for. So, but really, when you think about the overall products and services, we try to make it very efficient and streamlined for you. Of course, you are not locked into our services. Just by approving us does not mean you are committed to any contract. We would recommend that any investments you purchase, we consider it a buy and hold strategy, and the reason for that is the investments available to you are marketable. They do change price day to day because I can go out and sell it if needed to raise liquidity. If you need something ahead of maturity, I can go sell it. You do take that risk with the price could go up, it could go down, but at the end of the day, we recommend that you not do that, which is why we want to make sure we fully understand your project schedule, and we want to have those maturities available as needed. But the key here would be to implement that strategy, be thoughtful about how we make these investments, and then have that predictable income so you guys can use it towards project expenses or debt issuance, debt repayment if it's lingering at the end. So you have some options. Your investment policy is the next item there, and as you mentioned, it's really just focused on what the village is doing as well. I don't see any dramatic changes that I would recommend, but I do on an occasional basis review those as well.
So are you ready for a couple questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
So a couple of things that I'm wondering about is the level of risk. So you kind of alluded to selling, or I don't know the proper terminology.
Sure.
So we want to just make sure that we're not investing anything that is risky for the funds. We make sure the funds are secure. So can you talk a little bit about the risk level or lack thereof? So
No, and there is risk with, even taking money and put it under your mattress, there's some risk, right? But at the end of the day, the state has defined very specific parameters around the types of investments that you as a holder of public funds can invest in. Those are very commonly treasuries. So the U.S. government obligations are the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. There are agency securities, which are, you'll hear about Ginnie Mae, Freddie Mac, things like that. There are two different kinds of agency securities, or what they're called agencies. There are a few that are full faith and credit of the U.S. government, and there are some that are an implied guarantee. All that means is that they represent a public good, so it would be unlikely for the government to allow them to miss their debt payments. So what that means to you as a holder of those investments is if they miss their debt payment, you can rest assured that the government would help. Now that being said, there are other investment options such as CDs, which we keep under FDIC insurance limits. The exception to that would be if your local bank, for example, was willing to meet specific rates. We have a few instances where if they're willing to do so, we can invest higher amounts, but we request a letter of credit. And all that means is that it is then covered from a collateral standpoint. And of course, any collateral requirements within your policy, we would meet as well, or make sure that we are monitoring if we hold funds at your local bank on your behalf. The other investment types, as I mentioned before, corporate debt, municipal debt. In Wisconsin, you don't have to have a rating if you want to invest. You can purchase Wisconsin debt from any Wisconsin municipal entity without a rating, but we always will monitor for credit in financials. It is not likely that we haven't seen a ton of Wisconsin issuers that have a poor rating or would fall under the category of non-investable, but we will monitor for that. If we were to look at other states' investments or municipal debt, we can do so, but it has to be the top two rating categories and mature within 7 years, which these funds will be set to mature. So these are very low risk investments. Each of them has a specific type of risk that would be considered before making an investment. We don't make those decisions for you. We always coordinate with your finance team and provide our best recommendation, and we always will keep within the parameters of your policy as well.
is there a particular investment strategy you're recommending as part of this proposal? I can't remember if there was a specific
There is,
method
and
you have.
there are a few different types that we typically will recommend. Because this is a project, we actually recommend tailoring or laddering the maturities to meet the project schedule. So it's very simple in that, there's not a lot of strategy behind that other than finding securities that are appropriate for those particular maturities.
So that is another question that we have is the spend down. So we are invoiced once a month for most of our project expenses, and we have a professional who's estimating when those expenses will come due based on expertise in the construction industry, but we don't know for certain what those payments will be. And so we just want to make sure that we're able to pay those commitments when we need to.
Of course.
So I I guess if you could just elaborate on that
I can,
cash
and-
flow consideration, that'd be helpful.
And I would even recommend, in our current market, the very, very short-term treasuries are still paying a pretty attractive rate. I would recommend keeping a portion of it in like a 30-day roll. So what you don't spend from last month, you just roll into the next month. It'll earn you a little bit of income, but you'll have some extra cushion in case you get a big invoice and want to make sure it's paid on time. Typically, if you get an estimate from your vendor, we've seen projects fall behind more so than go ahead. And that's just the state of where we are right now.
That's not how that works.
Right. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but just in light of what we're seeing in the market, you're not in any way punished if we keep things shorter term. There's no reason we couldn't keep a little bit of liquidity on the front end. You'll have some availability, but we will try our best to match most of those maturities to what your vendor is providing. If something were to come up, something catastrophic, and they suddenly have this huge bill and we don't have the liquidity for 30, 60, 90 days, I'm not above calling your vendors and saying, hey, this is what's happening. We're going to have a maturity on this date. We've actually been able to get most of them to be okay with it. Not that I'm saying you're going to pay your bills late, but we would recommend doing something like that before liquidating investments ahead of maturity. As I mentioned before, everything that we purchase is marketable. There's no penalty for cashing something in early, but you do take market risk into consideration. And to give you an idea, even if I buy a U.S. Treasury right now at par, at face value, tomorrow it could be a different price. So if you tell me tomorrow you have to sell it, it might be better and it could be worse. We will always look at the full investment portfolio and provide you a recommendation on what might be most advantageous or least of an impact to sell.
Do you have any other questions, Lisa?
I just had one question when you talked about the collateral part. So right now, everything that we have at the bank, they send me a list monthly telling me how all of the funds are covered. So the majority of the funds that we have at the local bank are covered by a letter of credit. So as we pull that money out of like our bank account and we turn it over to Ellers for investing, what kind of collateral product do you use for that then?
So because we're not an actual depository, we don't provide collateral. The investments are in Yeah. The investment is in your name. So you are the holder of any underlying investment. Right now at the bank, they're holding your funds on your behalf. They're in your name, but they use your cash as part of their depository reserve, which is why they provide you that collateral of, letter of credit or underlying securities as noted. But if you reduce that, the letter of credit is the easiest way to they can adjust it. So it's kind of it's an efficient way of tracking that collateral. Anything that you have at the bank that's over that state guarantee amount and the $250,000 FDIC or NCUA coverage should be collateralized in general. Not that we think your local bank is going to go out of business, but it happens where banks merge together, and then you could have a potential lag in accessing your funds. So the letter of credit is a really simple way to feel like you're covered. And as I mentioned, we are not a depository. All investments are in your name. They're in the village's name. You own them. They actually have a whole different type of coverage called SIPC, which is a Securities Investor Protection Company. Very similar to FDIC insurance and how it operates, but it's actually based upon, it's not market losses. So if you cash in a maturity or an investment before maturity, those market fluctuations, that's on you. If for some reason the underlying custodial safekeeping account were to, so to give you an idea, we work with Pershing. Pershing is one of the largest custodial providers. Very low risk in that aspect. If they were to go out of business, the insurance covers the actual holdings in the account, so you're covered. There's also some supplementary insurance through Lloyd's of London just to cover again the holdings of the account. So the custodian, and I should mention this. I don't take control of your assets. I technically don't even have access to take them out on your behalf. It is through your instruction. And all investment decisions are through your advisement. I'm considered when we are on the account, we're considered like an authorized user, basically.
Yeah, John.
So can you describe the fee structure that you have and how it relates to monies that we would be deriving from your investment strategies?
No, that's a good question. And the actual fee structure, it's a tiered structure. And the idea is the more funds that you have on hand or in our accounts, the lower the fee percentages. So I put on the actual, I'll take it, I put on the sheet here, there's actually a range. It's 17 to 20 basis points is what we're considering about the average as you spend it down. And if you think about it per month, so the fee right now, it's about $10,000 over that 2-year period. So it's a little under $1,000 a month. And the income that we're projecting over, it's $120,000 over that 2-year period. So if you think about the per month difference, your income will far exceed the fee. We
So-
take the fee right out of the actual account.
About 10 times the fee.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can charge you more, but no. But no, we try to make sure that it is of good value for the village, and we want to highlight and showcase what we can do for you. And, you know, my hope is always that you know, if you trust us to do this and we do a good job, perhaps we can help guide you through other aspects of your financials as well.
Another question. Can you predict, not wanting to be a nitpicker, but any downside to making a decision go?
No, there's actually, and I would say you're better off to invest even in a low yielding, and whether you choose to invest with me or if you choose to work with your local bank or even what's called the local government investment pool, I would always advise you to put those funds to work in any capacity that you are comfortable with. So are there risks? There are risks. The investments that we are typically providing are either principal guaranteed, they come with some sort of insurance or assurance from the government entity, whether it be a local government or the U.S. government. The investments specifically are very low risk, but again, I would recommend that you invest these funds during the time that you don't need them.
Thank you very much.
So when you say principal guarantee, basically we could choose to invest the funds in a way that we were guaranteed whatever we invested.
Treasury
Regardless.
securities, yep. And Treasury securities are the lowest risk investment type that we really provide, other than you know, if you hold it in cash. But there's always opportunity cost if you are investing in something that's too low of a yield. If it's that low of a, you know, you can put your funds in the bank and it's collateralized, you can feel comfortable and confident. There's nothing wrong with that. You are earning a little bit of income, you're covered. Putting it to work a little bit, taking incremental risk in different types of investments is putting it to work in a little bit more of a effective manner. But there are options that are principal guaranteed.
So we need to do a principal guarantee, right? Like, 'cause we need to make sure that when we come out of this, we have exactly what we started with.
Yes.
Right, that's
Seems
all the
wise.
investments are.
The investments that we are, so this
So
proposal
all of
was
them are-
based upon treasuries and CDs.
Got it.
And
Okay,
CDs
sorry, I
are,
misunderstood that.
just keep in mind, CDs are not principal guaranteed. They fall into an insured product. So even at your local bank, when you buy a CD through them, it's not principal guaranteed, but they provide that FDIC insurance against losses. So you can feel confident that your principal is protected in that manner. And again, part of it is assessing and taking that balanced risk. So maybe it's not all in CDs, put a little bit in treasury, a little in CDs, but the key is we keep it very low risk. And it is a fixed income investment, so even though the price fluctuates while you hold it, when you purchase it, you know you're getting face value at maturity. So at the end, you're getting that face value, or what they call par.
They wouldn't make any money if they didn't give us back everything that we gave them.
Yes, that is a funny joke. Yeah, I can earn you all kinds of money and you're going to say yay things, but if we lose any money, it's going to hit the news. So.
That's where we're coming from.
Yes.
Thanks for asking.
Same here.
No, please, that's important to ask.
Katie, do you have any thoughts or questions?
Well, no, I think if I'm hearing you, the fee is based on the size of the investment. So, and because you're a fiduciary, you're not getting referral fees or making any money on from the various products that
No,
you're
we
choosing.
actually, and we do not, we're not a broker. So
Right.
when you work directly with a broker dealer, that is how they make their compensation. They actually will buy an investment and they sell it to you at a higher price. And that's very common in the industry. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's really just the difference in how we operate.
Right.
We don't take any sort of referral bonus or, you know, even if I coordinate something with your local bank, I don't take a fee off of that. And I can't take bribes.
Right.
Really good
I'm sure
business,
that's in, I'm sure that's in the policy, the investment policy
Right.
or somewhere.
Lisa, do you have thoughts on this?
I have the expert here because I'm not a banker. But to me, it seems like a good idea, and we've never used them for this service before, so I think it makes perfect sense to do it, and we'll probably continue to do it in the future.
For big projects, yeah.
Yeah, for big projects, because right now, when we borrow funds, they're all usually spent down within 12 months. But because this one is kind of going out because of the length of the funds being held in our account, it kind of gets us in a gray area where we could run some risk, but they're the experts on knowing how to manage that so that we don't get in trouble.
That is our primary goal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling really, really awkward now, and I'll explain why. This is my first official meeting, and you've not been introduced, and I was
I'm
wondering
sorry.
who you might be.
It's my fault. That's okay. I'm on name tag now.
I'm
No,
Lisa.
you don't. You weren't introduced.
I'm the finance director for the village, Lisa, so, Novinska.
You're with me?
Novinska.
Thank you.
My apologies, John.
No,
You guys probably don't even know who maybe
Well,
You look familiar. I mean, I'm sure we've
all at
met.
joint meetings.
Yeah.
We've met in the past 5 years.
so you understand why I'm feeling so awkward.
Oh, that's fine.
No, I'm feeling that right.
I didn't mean to do that.
So that is another good point, though. Lisa is the one who manages all our payments and the borrowing and things for us. So she's been super helpful with everything so far, and she'd be the one that would be working with Ellers directly to proceed with this investment on our behalf if this is something you choose to pursue. And then the part that would go along with it, if you want to pursue it, is that adoption of the village investment policy, which the village would need to amend to include the information allowing for the investment in this way.
And I don't know if, Tammy, if you want to talk a little bit about some of the other municipalities, maybe in close proximity to us that you work with?
Yeah, of course. We actually work with over 100 and I think it's 110 different, communities within Wisconsin and Illinois that I specifically manage. In fact, 11 libraries specifically, 2 in Wisconsin, almost 3, and about 10 in Illinois. So it really is. If you think about the communities around here, Windsor is one of our. In fact, I'm going to the treasurer's meeting this week or next week to present on policies of all things. So they're one of the communities around here. Cottage Grove, Lodi. I'm trying to think from us south. There's a slew of them down here, and I can never think of where they're all. We've got. Well, I'm trying to think now. I'm south of Madison. Ellers works with Janesville. I work with Belleville. In fact, I'm trying to think here now too. Not Evansville. Oh yes, Evansville. Hired today actually. I don't work with Edgerton on their investments yet. Trying to think around here though. I should get out my phone and look at the map.
Well, just any municipality that you work within the state.
Yeah, and in Bellevue, and we work with a couple of larger communities like Green Bay and Pewaukee. We work with Wausau, Oshkosh. So a lot of larger ones. We also cover a lot of municipal utility districts. So just a nice variety. And I can also send you the list. There's a pretty exhaustive list of Wisconsin and Illinois clients. But
Are there any other questions? People are feeling like this is something that makes sense, it sounds like. I'm getting some head nodding. Okay, so then we would need to have a motion. Do we want to discuss the village investment policy, or do we just want to approve it?
So there's 2 parts. I guess the village investment policy is what the village policy has been, so we wouldn't necessarily have any ability to change it. So if there's any parts we have questions or concerns about, we could talk about that. But basically, it's the existing village policy that they've, I'm sure, carefully adopted. So we would just be saying that we're going to follow their investment policy and any future changes they make. Of course, if they made a change in the future that we didn't feel comfortable with, we could just vote to stop adopting that or to make a change in that. So I I guess we would need two motions. One would be to accept the proposal from Ellers to invest the funds, or to have the village invest the funds on our behalf through Ellers. And then the second would be to adopt the Village of Oregon investment policy to allow the village to do that.
Was there anything else that we needed to have them do, Tammy? And I know, based on what happens here Monday night, I think it's another joint meeting with the library board. We do have on there to amend our resolution, adding Ellers as an advisor and Pershing as a investment.
And as long as the custodial and the vendor side of it is approved, then you are ready to go.
Yeah, so we are in the process of making those amendments that will allow us to work with him on your behalf too.
So I guess I would take a motion to approve Ayler's investment proposal first.
So moved.
For a second? Second. Any discussion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Okay, thank you. And then the next is the village investment policy, and I would take a motion to adopt the village investment policy and any future changes,
Any future updates?
updates.
Yes.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion, questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Okay, thank you. I think that is, so thank you so much for your time, we appreciate it.
I appreciate your time tonight, and don't be afraid to ask if you want to come back for any meetings. I'm generally available.
Time delayed video.
Right, yeah. I can join via call, too.
We appreciate your time, really. Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We also appreciate all the work Lisa did to explore this option for us.
Now we have a lot to do ahead of us.
And congratulations on your project. I'm excited to see that result.
We're excited too. Absolutely much. Next is reallocation of the 2022 project expenses from impact fees to 2021 borrowing.
And so this is just basically a reallocation for accounting purposes. So the memorandum of understanding with the village had specified that our initial expenses would be taken from impact fees. So we just started doing that for all of our expenses. It actually only specifies that architect and engineering fees have to come from that source, but that was the easiest. When we first, impact fees have rules about you have a certain amount of time when you have to spend them down or they have to be refunded. And so the library at one point was kind of getting on that verge of having to refund that. And so then now we only have a few years of impact fees available, so we're not at risk of having to refund any of those, and they can be used at any point in the project. But the borrowing also has rules about the spend down on that, and so we're doing a little bit of a dance just to reallocate those expenses that were paid from impact fees and just transfer those for accounting to say that have them be paid with the borrowed funds instead, to make sure that we're on track to spend down the borrowed funds. For accounting purposes, we're hoping that if we can start construction this fall, that we would be on track to spend down all the commitments, but it's more of just an accounting precaution at this point to make sure we're on track where we need to be for village expenses. So the motion that I would recommend is that we reclassify the invoices or the expenses in your packet from impact fees to the 2021 borrowing to help with that. And so we would just send a list of those to Lisa. She would just do some accounting magic and make those come out of the correct fund. And then she also helps us track, what we've spent from the project. And so she, is able to track what's from each impact fees or borrowing so that we know where we stand. Are there any questions on this item?
I just have a question about the list after. There's like a big dark line
Yes.
under 331. Does that mean anything or no?
No, that's I use the line for my own tracking purposes,
Okay.
and I was rushing too much to take it
That's
off.
fine.
Yes, it's just my Excel
Right.
snafu. So, but all the invoices that we want to
Okay.
reclass are shown.
It's all of them
Yeah.
on the page,
Yeah.
not
It's just
right.
It's
Okay.
just telling me it's the end of March. So that-
Gotcha.
Totally fair.
Just to clarify.
Okay.
And these are all expenses that have already been approved and paid.
Right.
Just for
Right.
clarification.
So I would take a motion to reclassify the attached 2022 library project expenses from impact fees to 2021 borrowing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Any discussion? questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Awesome, thank you.
And then what would a recommended motion be?
Yeah, right. I don't know how to say that out loud. Read it. So next is recognition of trustee Carrie Shuda for 15 years of service. So we would like to formally appreciate you. Hopefully we try to appreciate you every day, but we can't say thank you enough for all that you have done, everything that you, all the wisdom you have shared, all of the acceptance you provided to us, and the guidance you've given to us. So thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Carrie.
It was longer than I expected. But other than that, it was great. And I'm really excited for this new library.
The longest 5 years of your
Yes, exactly.
No, we do really appreciate you. You've been wonderful. I know when I first started,
Very much.
Carrie was a great resource, and she was kind of, I think, planning on heading out before I was even hired, and so she
Well,
kindly stuck around and supported us through a
things
lot of
happen.
adventures.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, everybody.
So today is Carrie's last meeting, and we'll miss her greatly. So
Yep.
you can give her a call if you need to.
I'll be around.
And we have a certificate that we will get you, so we want to say thank you.
Okay.
So,
We have a friend, we'll get a friend for you. So.
and then next is request for personal leave of absence without pay.
We follow the village policy for paid time off, and we have an employee who is requesting a longer period of time off for their honeymoon, and they don't have available leave time to use towards that, and so the policy allows them to request a period of unpaid leave. The supervisor and I are both in support of that leave request, so I would encourage you to approve that so that employee can go on their honeymoon.
I'll second that. Discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Okay, thank you.
I wish them a good day.
Yeah, wish them happy wedding. It's exciting. Next is a new library project schedule, revenue and expenses.
So I'm a little concerned. We have 2 members that won't be able to be at our joint meeting on Monday, and with the world of COVID that we live in, I'm a little concerned that, you know, if something arises that we might not have a quorum. So I'm going to ask you to approve things that I'll ask you to approve again on Monday, just to make sure we have our bases covered in case we don't have a quorum. So I just want to warn you. So in your packet, you do have a schedule for the project. So the first page has all been completed. So the second page schedule, where we're at is, I'm going to go down to the construction section, and that's kind of the part that we're at right now. So our team has worked through design development, and they're trying to get really close to knowing everything we need for the project so they can develop the construction documents. So we're hoping to go to the village board on Monday night and get approval of the project budget, which is basically the available funds that we have collected and how we plan to use those, and then also get the village board's approval of the plans, and that would allow us to continue the design and put the project out to bid. Right now we're targeting putting the project out to bid in mid-September, with bids due towards the end of September, which would allow us to meet the deadline for the October 3rd village board meeting. The village board does have a couple things they need to approve to allow us to award the contract. And then there's some time for contract negotiations, and we could potentially be breaking ground in October and starting construction. So it's a pretty regimented, ambitious timeline, but right now it is still feasible to start building this fall. Are there any questions on the project schedule?
I have one. Are we risking being too ambitious here? When I share this project with friends, they're saying you're crazy, it won't get started then, and it will be at least, you won't break ground until spring or summer next year. And I'm like, what? And so that made me nervous, because I thought we pretty well had it tight where we could get going this fall. So am I missing something?
I'm not sure the nature of their concerns. Were they concerned about the timeline or the construction market? Did they elaborate on their concern?
Basically, it's a village thing, and can we really believe it's going to happen?
So we're being cautiously optimistic. We've coordinated the schedule pretty carefully with the architect, the owner's rep, the engineer, and the village meeting schedule. So that's why a lot of our deadlines are specifically set to coincide with village board meetings very, very carefully. Every deadline is pretty carefully planned out, with the exception of us needing to schedule a special library board meeting once the bids come back. There's always surprises, as we've learned in the last 4 years. But we want to do everything we can to try to start construction in the fall because of construction costs to build over the winter, and then also because of the construction market we're in, there's huge escalation costs. So even if we want to get everything as perfect as we can, but of course if something unexpected were to come up that needs to be changed, there's mechanisms during the construction process to make a change on, the doors opening the wrong way or something like that, and you can do a change order to adjust minor things.
Right.
We've also started talking to contractors to let them know what's going to be out to bid, so they're hopefully looking for it and expecting it. We actually have a couple contractors that donate into our project, right? So they ask all the time, when is this going to, they donate to our fundraising campaign, right? So they're excited to, know when it might actually get built and things that way. So, I mean, there's always risk, right? We've had nothing but bumps so far, but I
Sure.
would say that the planning that we've done and the team that we've assembled to be able to make sure things get out to bid and negotiated, and I would say cautiously optimistic.
Sure.
I'm not, and even if we get it and all of a sudden it is November, December, we have mechanisms to wait to know what's going on and to start in the spring, and by that time you've ordered the materials and you're kind of awaiting some of those lead times. So I would say that, I'm a nervous person by that's my personality. I'm nervous and I worry about things, but I feel like we've planned this as much as we can to not have to be nervous.
I think too, the other things that we have going for us in this construction market is that we've done those construction cost estimates, and we've already made adjustments to our project, and often projects, municipal projects we've seen don't typically do that, and so we've seen a lot of projects that went out to bid and didn't get a lot of bids, or that the construction costs were high and then they weren't able to proceed and those projects are getting delayed. So because we've had the advantage of having those construction cost estimates and have made those adjustments already, we're in a much better position going into bid time. We'll also have alternates to try to position us to make those adjustments if there's surprises on bid day and things come back much lower, much higher, so that we can optimize what goes in the project, or to make some priority choices to allow us to do it without having to rebid. A number of projects have to go back to the drawing board and rebid, and we've already done that as part of our process to date, so we're in a better position because of that. It's not perfect, but it helps put us in the best place we possibly can be.
I don't mean to rain on the parade here.
Not at all.
Just want to be sure that we're...
Well, see, because you're coming in sort of towards the tail end. It's not like we're just starting here. This is
part of our building committee.
Yeah.
I'm on the
but-
construction committee.
Okay, so
I'm
then
real
you work
familiar-
with,
I'm very familiar with
so
projects.
then you've worked with Jenny, and you know that she's like our construction guru.
No, I know
Okay.
that. That's what she does
So-
for a living, and I get that.
so-
I just want to be sure that we're not going to get blindsided with anything we weren't
Well,
expecting.
Oh, we quite possibly might.
But if you don't set a date, then you don't get anywhere.
Well,
you
if
know?
we have this arranged so that there are ample opportunities to take stuff back to the village board,
Right.
then that gives us the flexibility should something come up, and it allows us to also be optimistic cautiously about where we're at. I think it's probably going to be a combination of
John,
the
I'm
two.
sorry. I did know that you were on the board, but perhaps your friend didn't know how long this has all been going on?
Oh, he's very knowledgeable about the ongoing to the village.
Okay.
Very knowledgeable.
Okay.
But the other experience that I bring to the table is 10 years ago, along with my building partner, we built a $2 million downtown mixed-use building with
In the
apartments
city of Madison.
In the city of Madison. And the preparation for that was
There's no way we
years.
would race in the city of Madison.
Right.
We plan this for 5 years from now. If that
Yeah.
is
And
the
so,
plan for the city of Madison.
From a hard hat standpoint, I was in the building overseeing construction every day.
Yeah.
And so I'm not unfamiliar with this process.
Okay. No, and we appreciate thoughts and comments, and we want the public's feedback. So if they're coming and asking you, we want to make sure that we're responding to those concerns as well. So.
Well, and I assured this individual that we had everything prepped and ready and we're gonna rock and roll, and I have a shovel in my hand in October and I'm turning dirt.
I'll be there.
So I will just say our architects were emailing me between 10 o'clock and midnight multiple times, so they are working very hard to do everything they can to dot their I's and cross their T's.
As are you.
She's answering.
Who's
reading those emails,
Jennifer? Groundbreaking.
Yeah, we will. We'll do everything we can to keep things on schedule. Again, we'll have to roll with the punches and adjust as we need to. And I wish we had a crystal ball, because we could have used that about 4 years ago when I took the job.
Right.
But I think we have an owner's representative to help us with lots of construction expertise. So we have an architect who's done lots of libraries, an engineering firm that's done lots of village and municipal Oregon projects. Of course, there's supply chain issues. There's all sorts of things that could still throw us a curveball, but all we can do is best position ourselves to have everything ready to move forward and make the best possible decisions. And on Monday, if the project plans get approved, that's one more milestone in making that possible. If there's any delays related to those decision-making things, those might be very important, and that could affect the timeline. We have a little bit of cushion, but there's not much, just because of the concern about costs going up. So.
Oh, OPM is amazing.
And that's why you're asking us to approve things today, just in case.
So is there a proposed motion and language?
There's a few more things I think to go through.
Got it.
So so the other thing on this agenda item, this is schedule and revenue expenses, is the project budget. So on the last page of that big village library building project document is the project budget that will be in the village packet on Monday night. And of course, my packet is locking up because I'm on Zoom with Carlene. But basically, the bottom section of project funding reflects all the committed sources of funding that we have received for the project to date. All of those are available for immediate expenditure, with the exception of the donation pledge commitments. That is a handful of individuals that have made pledge commitments over multiple years. So they've scheduled those out as to how they plan to make those donations. And then the focus on energy credits are a rebate program, I believe, that we would have that additional rebate on our qualifying expenses that would offset the project budget. So those are available funds. The pledge commitments, there is a subtraction of 9.5% to account for any risk or pledges that may not come through. I will say we have, my last project, we had over $225,000 in pledges on a $2.4 million project, so we have a much smaller percentage of pledges. People with the pandemic seem to pledge, to be more inclined to give what they can instead of pledging over multiple years. So I think that decreases our risk in some ways, but of course we never know with the pandemic. And so there's actually, if all the pledges were to come in, we would actually have more funding available than what's shown in that budget because of that buffer we've built in. And then the top is the construction budget put together by our owner's representative. That includes contracts that have been approved for architect services, and then also informed estimates on other project expenses. There could be cost savings in a particular line item, so we're asking the village board to approve the bottom line, which is the total project budget, and then it would be up to the library board to make decisions that might involve moving funding from legal per se, if we don't need as much fees for legal to negotiate the contract. Those funds could be reallocated and used to a different aspect of the project where unexpected expenses might be incurred. There's also a contingency built into that. So that's a very typical part of a construction project budget. Things always come up, and so that allows us to respond to those things. If there's no surprises, then those funds might be available to add special things or make small changes as the project moves forward. It's a pretty standard amount that's being budgeted for that. So even if there are surprises, we should be okay. If there's tons of surprises, that would be atypical. And again, not what we're aiming for. Are there any questions on the project budget or the project funding?
What's the bottom line you're asking us to approve here? That's what I'm not.
The total project budget is at the very bottom of the document.
I didn't school.
So it's the $13,421,000 number at the bottom. So that includes all the funding from the village through community donors and the impact fees that the village has collected for residential development to put towards the new library specifically.
Questions on the budget? Then I would take a motion to approve the schedule and budget.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Thank you, guys. This is a huge step, and I am so excited for the next step. Very, very excited, and the amount of work that's gone into making sure that this will work is, it's a huge amount of effort, and Jennifer and the library staff have been amazing, and going through things multiple times, and our design team has been amazing, so I'm just very excited for today.
Jenny spends more hours at volunteer library meetings than some of my part-time employees spend working at the library each week, so we also appreciate that expertise as well.
Okay, so next is new library project alternates for bidding.
So I guess I'm going to ask you to approve this. I don't know if it's necessary, but let's just do it to be careful. So one of the things the village administrator asked to include for the village board packet on Monday is just to identify some project alternates that are anticipated. So we've tried to strategically find some alternates that could allow us to put some special things back into the project that maybe have gotten cut out, and then also some alternates that would be deducts to be cost-saving measures should bid prices come back higher than expected. And so there's a lot, we had a 3-hour meeting about this the other day. So these are pretty, there's also some things, so the goal is to not have too many alternates, because then the contractors don't want to go through that exercise, but to have them be meaningful and flexible alternates. So the add alternates you see at the top, one of the items is to upgrade the labor product on the siding to light brick color. Also to make part of the patio a green roof area. That was something that the Nature Alliance had really expressed interest in, and then got cut when we were making adjustments to our floor plan and project scope. This would allow us to add that back if funding allows. We also lost some square footage in the library in general, so we would prioritize adding some of that square footage back to the children's area. So we'll have a design for where that footprint would be. So if additional funds were available through a grant or community generosity, that we would be able to respond and select that item. And then the last thing, 2 other things would be upgrading the windowsills from this currently specified material to be a little bit higher quality material, and then the possibility of, we'd really love to have a standing seam metal roof, and so we're going to price that. It's probably going to be cost prohibitive, but we want to just have that information available, because then you can make smart choices on bid day. The deducts are, one of them OPN provided yesterday was to reduce some ceiling tile sizes, and the size would result in projected significant amount of savings. So that's one that they're going to price. It's aesthetically not as nice, and there's some other reasons why they prefer the size they have, but that could be a cost-saving measure. We currently have a natural limestone in the site plan because our engineer was able to find a cost-effective limestone option, but we want to make sure that there's a man-made modular block option as well. So if bids come back and that limestone is priced higher than we've been told it's available, then we can downgrade that material as well. We also have a biking path around the library on that. We're not trying to advocate getting rid of that, but if we're getting to a point where bids come back much higher, we have to make tough choices, or people feel strongly about one element, like the brick versus another. We just want to have all the information available to make those good decisions on bid day. The village board will also have an opportunity to see the bids, and so if they have feedback on the bids, they'll be able to provide that. So it's not like we're going to take things out that they're not having a chance to provide feedback on. The other thing is the CCTV system, which is the closed circuit camera system. And the reason to do that as a deduct is we might be able to get better pricing or make modifications to the system if needed by going through. We could hire a vendor that provided that service and do that separate from the bid. That would also allow us more time to raise funds and see where funding stood to be able to achieve that. So our professional team and Jenny will be working to identify other opportunities that might help us respond on bid day. Again, we don't want this to be a super long list. We've tried to take things out that are very small dollar amounts and just have those be in the base bid. Also got our estimate back on Monday and trying to, just go through what's in there and make smart choices to make sure we're positioned as good as possible without cutting things that are really essential. So I guess any feedback you have on those alternates would be great, and if not, then we'd love to have you approve this list for starters anyway, so that we have that starting point.
So I have a question for Jenny,
Yes.
because I figure you're the person to ask. Did you, when you guys were coming up with this list, did you have ideas in your head about like roughly how much they're all going to cost? Because I don't see any numbers here.
With the estimate that we came back, quite a few of those have been estimated as part of that construction estimate.
Oh, okay.
So we have an idea of
So
what
if
we
we
would
dug in
expect.
there, we could find it. Okay.
So with the new estimate, there's a few on here that we didn't have them estimate, but we all have a pretty good idea, and Jeff has a good idea of what that ad, or like for the roof, those type of things, what those would be.
So like roughly, could you say like how much could the, would the ads add roughly? How much would the deduct?
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable
Okay.
making that conclusion. It kind of depends too. The estimate's only as good as the estimate on the day it's being estimated and based
That's
on
true.
past projects. So
Totally fair.
depending on the construction market, things
True.
could be very differently priced based on supply chain or the price at the time. So
instead of looking at money, you were looking at really what things could be added or taken
And
away.
things that are easy to, things
Yep.
that we might identify as priorities of, things that we would really like to have, or things that, they're great, but maybe they could
Okay.
come out, was kind of how we came up with the list.
and then also focus on what could be added later, because some of these elements could easily
Like the
be
CCTV.
added down the road, versus some of them you can't change once construction starts, and so that's kind of the other piece that goes into it. We'd love to keep all the great things and not get rid of anything else. The deducts are really hard because we've already made so many adjustments to the project that we've already taken out the things that we felt like we could part with.
Yep.
So it got really hard to come up with that list. So.
I have one question though. Is the list here in order of the building committees?
No, it's just kind of a
random.
It's
Okay.
random, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I would take a motion to approve the list of alternates.
I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any question, discussion?
Just a clarifying question too, is it's unclear whether or not, I guess the library board would need to approve any additional alternates. So I guess I would hear feedback if we should have a special meeting to just approve the final alternate list prior to going out to bid. And I guess that's what I would be inclined to do unless there's other thoughts.
I think if that's what you're inclined to do, I am comfortable with that. Make good decisions. Do you want a motion for that, or do we just want it noted?
I think I can just do that. I
Okay.
didn't mean to usurp the other motion.
I don't think you usurped the motion.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a motion and a second. If there's future alternates that we want to add, we'll have just a quick future meeting to discuss those. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
What I
Aye.
Opposed? Nay?
What I will most likely do is get a special meeting on the calendar as close to when the project is hoped to go out to bid. Maybe after next week, and we know a little bit more about the schedule considerations, and that way that you have it on your calendar, and then we can make sure any things that need approval could all be approved at that point. If we end up not being in the meeting or the schedule changes, then we can adjust accordingly.
Perfect. Okay, next is the new library plans and specifications for public bidding. So hopefully you guys have all seen the renderings and the floor plans that Jennifer sent. I know the files are big, but I have to tell you, I am so excited, guys. This is like seeing the interior renderings and the fly-through that we saw at the building committee, and I know that it's been, we designed something, we've revised it, we've gone back, but it's all part of the construction process, and a responsible construction process, which I'm very excited about. And getting to see people at the building committee, watching their faces light up when they see some of these spaces has been amazing the last few weeks, and I'm just very excited. So that's what I have to say about that. Sorry.
They look really good on my big monitors at home, I will say.
So I guess, are there questions specific about floor plans, or are there things that you would like to clarify? Any questions? I can tell you that exterior renderings sometimes look a little yellow. So please share with your friends. It's actually like a wood look hardy board. And we have a sample we can share with you if you want to see it. But on Monday at the village board meeting, we'll have that sample. But it does have a wood pattern to it, and from a distance it looks pretty nice. I think John probably has a picture of it on his board. Did you take a picture of the finishes? If not, I think I might have one. But it's okay. No worries. But I think
You
so.
should give me a little warning.
No, it's all good. I can share with later too.
Yeah, I've got a trip to Alaska in the middle here.
That's good.
You also have a very good picture sample on another building, and I think that helps all of us
It
understand
is
it
very
better than the
beneficial if
rendering.
you look at the photos on the attachments. You've got everything you need.
There was a little bit of feedback from the Plan Commission the other day. The site plan, although you will never actually look over the top of the site from the sky, they didn't like that part of it was slightly not completely symmetrical, so we adjusted that a little bit for the site plan. They did ask us to dot in future expansion for the building, which we have done. They said that will actually help with future approvals, showing that we were planning for something that way. So we really appreciated that feedback.
Not symmetrical.
The driveway wasn't symmetrical.
The sidewalk crosswalk by where the parking lot closest to Alpine was not symmetrical there, so that's been adjusted. So if you're looking at the site plan here, this has already been updated to include the commission comments that we've been able to adjust so far. The other contingencies they have is fire department approval, which we got today for the site plan, and then they said that we should explore a different materiality for the lower wood part. They preferred brick, and we said so do we. But that's contingent upon budget, so we're going to use that. That's why we have that as an alternate. We're hoping OPN can give us a nice rendering of what that, nice brick material that would be cost effective, and show us what that would look like, so we can show people what that materiality would look like. And then they asked that we'd explore canopies over the windows on the west side of the building to connect the shorter half of the building and the taller half. OPN's already started exploring that. It was pretty exciting to see what that looked like. I think it's a great suggestion. We hope to have design for that to show on Monday when we show the other plans at the village board meeting. I think we've tried to respond to all the Plan Commission comments, and I think we've done the best that we can on considering that meeting was on the 4th, to do that so far. And then there was a couple minor staff comments, like widening the book drop loop to make it a little bit easier for vehicles to go through. We did test a garbage truck. The engineer tested a garbage truck driving through the loop, but also tested a Ford F-150 to make sure they could make it to the book drop loop, and both are possible. The cool thing is that I didn't know you could do. So the site plan.
Drive your garbage truck to pick up your books.
So pumped, guys.
Yeah. So the site plan's gotten approval. There are typically tweaks to projects like this. That's pretty normal part of the design process. As a courtesy, when we're done with our final design, it would be nice to go back to Plan Commission to report on the final design. If any changes are significant enough, the village will, that would trigger Plan Commission site revision, and we would need to go through that process. We're hoping that none of any tweaks that would be big enough to warrant that. So that's the plan for that.
Would that delay the construction process?
It could, yeah.
Yeah, let's have that.
Yeah, we're not anticipating on moving anything as far as the shape of the building or the whatever. We've done a lot to make sure we get those things planned as best we can, but you never know. So the floor plan too, just a couple highlights, is we tried to make as much of the area by the windows towards the park available for the public, and so that there'll be some really exciting spaces for people of all ages to enjoy those views. There's also spaces for people of all ages to enjoy work together with other people, but also places for those people to get a little quiet away if they need that. There's some special spaces that were sponsored by donors, like we have a mother caregivers room, which will be wonderful. We'll have a sensory or calming room, which the school district is providing a little bit of advice to us on. from some of their staff. So we're hoping to have some really great things, and no matter who you are, to have some great spaces to enjoy.
And I keep going back to the teen area because during the fly-through, like right now our teens have really no space to themselves, right? It's all smushed together. It's a row of books. And when you look at it, it's a grown-up space that during the day when the kids are at school, when they're, grown-ups could use it, but it also is a space that is just for them. And I think that is an amazing resource for our community. And I kind of want to hang out there, so I'm going to try to pretend like I'm 14 or something. I don't know, but
Only when the
kids aren't there. I'll go during the day. But just they've done such amazing jobs with the little touches of making things personal and making things special for different groups, and I'm really appreciative of that.
And just to point out, the interior design is still being worked on, so those boards not being asked to, approve every little paint color and where every screw goes. They're just approving the basic floor plans, which we don't really anticipate to change, other than maybe modifying which way a door opens or something as we go through. Maybe a wall needs a shift, but generally the layout you see is what we're going to have. Even over the last 3 months, the building committee has seen revisions like 14 times, and it's always been just little tiny shifts. So that's kind of that there are changes to be expected, but they're tweaks and not significant differences over anything we've seen so far. We haven't finalized any furnishes or fixtures or equipment, so everything is in there showing kind of the direction it's headed. We're not going to have white chairs anywhere in the library.
Thank goodness.
So just know that those things are shown so people can understand the space and to get people excited about it. There's a big draft in the corner, but just to show you the direction it's going, what's possible. But we'll be working on finalizing our furniture after this goes out to bid. We'll be shifting direction to that later on, and we have a budget and some professional expertise to help us through that. So this is basically our direction, our best guess at this point, just so people understand how the spaces are going to be used. If you just present an empty floor plan, people don't understand how much space you need for certain things, and so it's much more meaningful to have a table in a room so you can see how that space would be utilized and what would go there for understanding, even though the shelving, the children's area, for example, is the least developed in terms of the interior because there's a number of moving pieces, that we gain some space back in the mechanical room, and so that design is less fleshed out. So the shelving are going to need to shift a little bit, so there'll be more shelving and seating added in there. It's just not quite as far along as some of the other spaces like the teen space.
It's a really nice addition, this floor space for that area.
It was.
Really beneficial.
So, are there any questions or comments? My friends, no. I would take a motion to approve the new library plans and specifications for public bidding.
I'll make that motion.
Yes. Is there a second?
I can second.
Carly have one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay?
Aye.
Awesome. Thank you guys. This is very exciting.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't do this work.
Right.
But you have all been here and supportive, and we appreciate that.
Absolutely.
If you want to see an amazing meeting, come to one of the construction committee meetings.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
The fly-throughs are awesome.
We have the best time.
We actually do have fun. That's exciting. Next is a 2023 library request, and I know you need to get going, so.
So I know it's a big, long packet for the budget, but most of the packet information is exactly the same as what you saw last month. The packet does include the addition of a teen librarian position, which we discussed last month to start July 1. The challenge is that the village does have limits to what they can increase their appropriation, and so there's a number of competing interests. They're trying to do the salary survey. We're trying to add staffing and also prepare for a new building. They're adding a new building with the new village hall. So there's going to be limits to what they can approve. So generally, Martin's, the village administrator's direction is that you should ask for what you need. And if we do that politely, with respect, and then, an understanding that what we need might not be possible, at least those needs are communicated so that they can understand what those needs are for future consideration. So I would want your feedback, because right now that team position, anytime you add staff, that's a significant part of our budget, and just adding, a staff position with health insurance can take up a significant part of the village budget appropriation increase. So just want to make sure we're thoughtful about that. We could, we would have, ideally we would like that position to start so they could help us with moving preparations. We have a lot of things to organize and to prepare for moving, change our address in a million places, and just, pack up and go through things, and there's just a lot involved with that. So we'd love that person to be trained and ready to go, so that when we move into the new library, that they would be able to jump right in and help serve our youth. But again, having that position is valuable anytime we can have it. So that's the first item that I wanted to talk about. The employee compensation information is still in progress. So it may be after our budget's approved that the village has that feedback that would inform all the village budgets. They might improve or suggest wage increases for many employees, or maybe just very few. We just don't know how that's going to come out, but they are analyzing compensation for village employees comparable to other municipalities and market positions of similar duties. Sorry, I'm talking a lot tonight. So our budget is due to the village on the 19th. I know that I didn't give this to you with as much notice as I normally would want to. So if we feel like additional conversations are merited, we could do a special meeting next week to continue the conversation. The other things I want to mention is that because of priorities with the compensation study and needing to add more staff for the new library, I do want to mention that we do have a number of employees that we've lost over the last year due to them seeking full-time work or positions with healthcare, and that's not special to us. But I do have at least one employee who would love for their position to have a few more hours so they could be eligible for even prorated healthcare. And at this point, with the other budget priorities, I don't feel like we would be successful in asking for that in addition to all the other things that we need. But I just want to make sure that wish for that employee is communicated, so we know that that's something that some of our team members would value. So as we're making choices about personnel and benefits and positions in the future, that we could consider just those pieces. And then we talked about the compensation study. A couple other increases that you see, very little change from last month. So the wages and benefits category changed to build in that teen librarian position, which is planned currently as a full-time position starting July 1, based on the assumption that they would take family plan insurance, which we really don't know until they're hired, and they need to be able to have that choice. We've also added some funding to start subscription to some meeting room reservation software that would help manage our meeting rooms in the new library. Since we'll have more spaces, study rooms, a community room available to the public, that would be an asset. And then we talked last month about programming, just because of some of the other priorities we've had. This year I'm recommending that we just shift. There's some cost savings because of the DPI, or the South Central Library System, getting some advantages on our movie license, which is now covered for the next 2 years. So I'm recommending, instead of adding to that budget line item, that we just shift those cost savings temporarily to start budgeting the programming. With all that we've got going on next year, there's not a chance, we're not likely to add as much programming as we would hope to the first full year we're in the new library, and then to revisit for next year's budget, potentially starting to build in a little bit into the municipal budget request to kind of get a base for those programming needs. And then the other thing that's tricky for us this year, Dane County reimbursement is a significant revenue source for us that's been frozen because of the pandemic considerations. They are reevaluating their formula, and with the pandemic that affects our use. And so what we'll get in 2024 is really up in the air, which is not what you want when you're moving into a larger building with more expenses. But the other thing you'll see is a decreased reimbursement from other counties. So those are people that are coming from Brooklyn or outside of Dane County and using our library.
That kind of the funding from the outside, just
Yes.
this is his first budget.
Yes,
and I
thank
found
you
that to
so
be
much.
actually-
I'm having a really hard time finding the budget in the packet.
I have a print copy for anyone who would like one.
Yeah, I would take one. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
It's easier to read on paper.
Burnt out, so I apologize.
No, you don't have to apologize.
Does anybody else want? I have 3 more print copies if anybody would appreciate one to follow along. So we get funding from Dane County based on surveys we provide to Dane County residents who live outside a community where there's their own library. So people that live in the town of Dunn, for example, the town of Dunn doesn't have its own library, and so the town of Dunn pays the county library tax, and those funds are given to libraries that the town of Dunn residents use. so that there's funding to offset their use. That's just an example. We get that from any community in Dane County that it comes through Dane County centralized, so it's not like any individual town or village's bill, but it comes through the county, is the county library tax levy on their property taxes. Similarly, if somebody is coming to use our library from outside of Dane County, there's also statutorial required, state statutes require reimbursement at a 70% rate based on a formula that they use, based on how much money we spend, how much our library's used total, and then how much it's used in total by people that live in that county outside of a municipality that support a public library. So it's a pretty complicated thing. But what happens with Dane County has chosen to freeze instead of adjust their costs. They've chosen to freeze that revenue to libraries, so libraries have some stability given that those items fluctuated in very strange ways with the pandemic and usage habits and libraries being closed, and so they chose to freeze it. And then they have a really complicated formula that it took somebody an hour and a half to explain to me. And so they're re-evaluating how their formula and reimbursement is calculated, and so they could have a totally different system. We don't know what that's going to look like for 2024. So the part that we are seeing a decrease in revenue is from the adjacent counties that are not Dane County for users.
Right.
During the pandemic, we were both closed for, this is funding for 2023, it's a 2-year delay. So in 2023, we get funding from 2021 use. When we were closed entirely through May of 2021 due to the pandemic. And then when we reopened, we had limited hours for a while. And then even when we reopened, a lot of people were working from home. So people that might normally have driven to Oregon for work and stuff at our library, maybe were working from home or maybe didn't go to work. There was times that affected use as well. And so we're hoping that those numbers we've seen, June was kind of our most normal month that we've had since before the pandemic and just was really busy. And so we're seeing everything kind of rebound. But there is, because there's that 2-year lag, our use in 2022 will affect the 2024 budget. And so it's always 2 years behind, which isn't always helpful for budgeting purposes, but we do appreciate the revenue. Are there questions about that? It's pretty complicated.
I don't have a question about that, but I'm looking at my own PDF of the budget,
Yes.
and I'm on page, can't see the page number. It's the third page of the spreadsheet, second page of the spreadsheet.
Okay.
As I look at this, am I seeing that the difference between last year and this year is the 75,000 plus the 41,000 plus the 62?
No, it's not cumulative.
And that
So
is
yeah, that's a great question. So
not cumulative. Okay.
the total expenditures line highlighted in gray that shows the 75,000, that is based on that's what our budget would be if we include that teen librarian position for 6 months like we talked about, and then based on the village direction that library or that village department should budget 3% for the personnel study. So that is the bottom line. And then I wanted to give you some flexibility should you feel like I'm a little concerned that that number might be too high for the village to realistically be able to implement for one particular department. And so below that, I showed you what that increase would be without that position, so you can just understand what it would be without it. And then the bottom line shows what that number would be if that start date was pushed back 3 months, just so you can see how that would affect the bottom line.
Would be in July.
September 1st, a September 1st start date instead of a July 1 start date.
But we only will give this to the village with like one number in it.
Yeah, so
Okay,
that's where I just wanted to give you
making
those
sure I'm
options to be flexible, and so whichever direction you provide, it would be that line would be the bottom line of the budget.
Okay, then I have a follow-up question to that. On page 4 of the same of the document that you're in, is the 150,000 divided among village operations? So is there a number somewhere in this top part that is what we could anticipate
So the simple answer is no. So, obviously the
Okay.
village has to look out for all the departments. They don't say, limit your, at least at this point, they're not, at this current year, they're not saying limit your increases to a certain amount. They're recommending just, communicate what your needs are. But chances are, if everybody communicates their needs, that there will have to be some give and take to make all those needs possible. We have been doing a staffing step plan since it was in place before I started. That was trying to plan for staffing increases to the library staff in advance of moving so that we wouldn't have all those needs hitting in 1 year. Because of our space, we kind of lack workspace for staff, and so there's some staffing that we probably would have requested in previous years, but we really had no place to put people. And so that was a challenge, and so we're a little bit making it for lost time. But it's kind of that weird transition period. So does that answer your question at all, or am I rambling?
Yes, totally does. Thank you.
Does anybody, I guess I can walk, the packet, there's a kind of a longer document that has the explanation of each individual line item and what that account is used for. The items highlighted in yellow are the ones that are increasing slightly related to new building costs. And the online subscriptions has got the $1,500 for the magazine or the meeting room software in that line item. We did cut a little bit from the training budget just because so many trainings are now available online with COVID. Other supplies and maintenance is for our advertisements for position vacancies, and we've seen more position vacancies, so we need to budget to make sure we can cover the cost of advertising those vacancies and doing the credit check for those. The bottom, electricity and gas, we are expecting our electricity bill to go up because of the geothermal system requires a significant amount of electricity to operate, even though we have solar panels that will not cover all the electrical energy needs for the library, so we'll have to be budgeting for that. And then contractual services are going up a little bit. We'll have more snow removal. We'll have to do something different with cleaning to make sure that we have are taking good care of our building. And so there's a lot of unknowns with those things, but we also have some expected cost savings with service calls and things that we're paying for now that would be under warranty in the new library, and we just have newer equipment that we wouldn't need. So we'll be, once we have the plans finalized, we'll be able to get better information about what those costs will be, what the elevator inspection will be. Some of those costs are covered the first year, and some of them will just need a little more information to project. So we're, if we were on the schedule that we talked about earlier, we would be anticipated to move in or open around the end of about 1 month worth of operating costs in the new building in 2023. And so there's a little bit of flexibility since it's such a short time that we don't have to have all the numbers, perfectly right. But just to make as informed guesses as we possibly can at this point, which is really, really hard, believe me. The other thing that we'll probably see is go up is property insurance. That again will be hard to estimate until we move. But there's a whole list of things related to fire alarm monitoring and sprinkler inspections and things that we don't have in our current facility that we'll have in the new facility. And we're just hoping some of the costs of maintaining an aging facility and some of the problems that we have going away from that facility maintenance will kind of offset some of the new costs. But there will be additional building-related expenses that we'll have to plan for in 2024 especially.
At this point in time, we really are making estimates because we don't have hard numbers.
Yeah. We can say we know, an elevator inspection costs this much for one elevator, but there's certain things that are going to depend on the number of fire alarm stations you have or the number of sprinklers you have, and those things are just not finalized yet, and it depends a little bit on the vendor and if we can get discounted pricing from other village departments going in on that service.
But if you stop and think about the percentage increase of floor space of the new building versus the old, it's just common sense. It's going to cost more to run.
I think it's more a matter of making sure that the wider community understands that we are preparing for that,
Right.
and that we're moving towards it slowly, and that we're being so thoughtful about all of the different pieces that are going to have to go into that. And so I do think that a lot of the benefit of all of this information that Jennifer has provided is that we also are able to articulate to the wider community why the cost of the library's everyday running is going to go up and all of those things.
staff.
It's only logical.
Yes, it is, but I will say that I will say that it is logical, and also I think that lots of things about this library project have a lot of emotion involved in them too.
Okay. Sure.
So
Yeah. The other part, though, is that as those costs go up, services to patrons also go up.
yes,
And you would hope that people would recognize that what we will have in the new library will be so much more than what we have now. And the patronage and everything else will also increase, that they'll see that it's well worth it.
I didn't think that anybody would question the value. That's not what we mean by that. Or,
no.
or want to, withhold funds on the other side of it either. It's just, it's a larger concern. It's a
It's a balancing act.
bigger facility. And there's more moving parts, and the expenses
Better.
will be more. It'll be a lot better.
Bigger, better, yeah.
But I don't think that any point in time is the administration of the village going to say, oh, darn, too bad we had this library. They're going to really embrace it and be grateful that we have the facility. That's my impression.
Our village board has been excellent.
And their job is, our job is to look out for the needs of the library and the community, and their job is to look out for the needs of the community and the village as a whole. And so
Right.
those in general, have the same interests, but there's also times where there's, other interests that they have to consider that maybe aren't our focus. And so, we want to work together. Our village staff and other departments have been amazing partners for the library in general and also for the building project. So we value those things and understand that, some years our needs will be able to be met a little bit better than others, but
Right.
want those needs to be made known as well.
So can I ask the board, my personal preference would be to include starting the new position at the July date to be able to do it. We've talked to the board previous years about how we've delayed hiring and some other things, but they should, I would hope, understand that we have a bigger facility, we need some additional staff. It's also a new resource for the community, which I think will be very valuable. So my preference would be to include that position in July, but I would like to hear other people's thoughts on that.
I was going to suggest the same thing. My personal opinion, and I know I've said this in years before as well, is that we should ask for the big amount. We should ask for what we think is the ideal situation for us, because I do know that we will be flexible and we will adjust if we need to. But I don't think the village can't approve the full amount if we never ask for it. And so I think that it's generally best to go for this is what we need and this is the best case scenario, and then move from that direction.
I concur.
I absolutely concur. I do as well. I think you ask for everything, we ask for everything, and then know where the places are that if we have to cut back, these are the places that it would be.
Least painful.
You don't get what you don't ask for.
No.
Yeah, you don't get what you don't ask for.
So then it sounds like we might be ready to approve our budget request. So I would take a motion to approve the budget request, including the teen librarian starting in July.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that one.
Second.
You're late.
Any further discussion or questions?
Damn, I was before you at my
Sorry, you could have been here.
well, I don't know. North Carolina is nice.
It is nice. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, thank you. And Jennifer, thank you for all the work in getting this out and putting it together and explaining everything. Your explanations are always amazing and make everything easy for us. Okay, next committee reports. Is there any personnel committee?
No, we held Jennifer's review, and that got sent into the village, so we haven't had any other meetings since then. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, Leslie. That's good. Thank you. Me and my
charging in.
Okay, that sounds fantastic, thank you. Building committee, we met to look at the exterior, we approved the site plan. Our next meeting will be looking more at interiors, which is exciting. And then kind of going from there, so.
Y'all want to come down?
We have
There'll be
fun.
seats around the other side.
So feel free to join our building committee. The public can join us too, it's an open meeting.
It's an open meeting.
Next, library director's
I
report.
need to interrupt because I have to sign off.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I have to leave.
Okay.
Thanks, Carlene.
Thanks for being here.
Just
All right.
about done.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you're doing. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Library director's report.
I don't have a written report because we were busy doing other things.
This is valid.
What?
This is valid.
Seriously?
A couple things to note. Our staff is amazing because I'm in my office with my door closed all week doing silly things like
Designing your library.
where every data cable goes and talking about which hand dryer you want to have and things like that, which is very important. But a couple things, the Planning Commission approved the building plans. Our summer program is going really, really well. We've seen so many kids, families, adults, everybody, all ages into the library. It's really exciting to see Kelly's Ocean. Mississippi River Museum did a shark themed program, which was really well attended. The school's been a great partner in hosting some of our library programs at their space, and that's been great. We had to have story time. One of the story times in the park didn't work out due to weather the other day, and so we had to have it in the main window area of the library, which was actually super exciting to see all the little children get so excited to hear Miss Kelly read. And I came back from another meeting, and the parking lot was pretty much full. So it's just exciting to see what the library feels like with that that engagement and that life, and that's really what we want to have, that level of engagement and excitement for all ages and for everybody, no matter what they need. So that was really fun. I think our staff really felt good about seeing that vibrancy in the library. We've had to have so much time where we didn't have programs, or so many programs that are off-site, and then you don't get to see people enjoying the library in those ways. So we enjoyed that opportunity. What am I missing? There's all sorts of great things, and I'm failing to think of more of them. But
We're good.
Yes.
Yeah. Doing amazing things.
Agreed.
Kelly is doing story time in the park on this Saturday. There's also a VFW Broad Fry and a kids triathlon, so downtown is going to be hopping. So.
We're excited. You can run a triathlon and go listen to a story as you pass out.
Eat a brat.
Eat a brat.
Eat a fried brat.
I'm excited for Saturday. Awesome. Okay. Village board announcements. Carlene signed off, so I would say that the biggest thing is Monday is our joint meeting with the village board to discuss the library. So I know a few people will be able to come, but if you can't come, we would really appreciate it so we can have the quorum that we need. The village board is super busy making sure everything is amazing for residents. So we appreciate all that they do for us. The school district.
Sure. We've been busy too, and it's of course welcoming back students or preparing to welcome them back. But it's also been with community information sessions related to the state of public school funding in Wisconsin and the impact on the district. And so we've had 5 sessions in the last week and a staff session also. And it's been really important to have an opportunity to talk to people because most people really don't have a lot of awareness regarding how much schools have been impacted by the decrease in funding. So they've been great conversations. The board is deliberating on what to do next, and they'll be taking a vote on August 22nd as to whether or not they want to go to a referendum to fill the budget gap that has been created by the lack of additional state funding.
Thank you. Okay, next, closing and future agendas. Our joint meeting with the village board is Monday, August 15th at 5 p.m. That's at the Village Hall. After that, we'll meet September 14th here. Are there any future agenda items?
I'm I'm just going to note that we will likely schedule that special meeting prior to September 12th, just to make sure if there's any final approvals by this board that are needed, just to make sure we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's related to the building project. I'll probably schedule something the week before. It will probably just be a very brief.
Like what are the dates you're thinking?
I will email you. I don't know.
I might be on a motorcycle trip.
That's okay. You can call in.
Absolutely.
Just driving through Alaska.
The benefits of the virtual meeting is now that you feel like you never have an excuse.
So
will always be
so I
required.
can phone in from my helmet as we're driving? Yeah, whatever.
We could just come with you on your trip. That works great.
It'll be
Yeah,
a
but-
travel, a
What
traveling
kind of machine are you
forum.
going to be riding?
Awesome. Well, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, and Laura Reese will be joining us as our new trustee next month. So Laura will be a great addition, even though we'll still miss Carrie.
Thank you guys so much for
Like
your
you're all
time.
covered.
I know I tried to keep these to an hour, so I apologize that it's longer.
Yeah, well, there wasn't a lot to do.
Right?
to do.
Nobody can complain about this kind of
No,
thing.
this is important.
Budget and shenanigans.
Shenanigans.